let's get started. Um, so we'd like to acknowledge our management team and then also staff. So this is a new slide for us. There's myself who we represent, or I represent the Wetlands Discovery Center on the management team. We also have Dr. Rachel Doherty, who's the Assistant Director for Programming and Special Projects over at the Center for Louisiana Studies at ULL. She's also representing the Louisiana Folklore Society as their president. We also have Maria Zarang, who is the newly appointed Folklife Program Director at the Louisiana Division of the Arts. And we have Dr. Gary LaFleur, who is the R.E. Miller Endowed Professor of Honors Studies over at the Center for Bayou Studies at Nicholls State University. And very excited to also share with you all our staff members of the Bayou Cultural Collaborative. And that is our very own Miss Maida Owens, who is our Senior Program Consultant, and Dr. Shauna Walton, who is a Project Coordinator. This is a slide that is put here to share with all of you the reason why we do what we do and why culture is so important to consider in the planning process. And so I share this picture with all of you today because this is a picture of some volunteers that are peeling crawfish for the Rougarou Fest that will be used in the crawfish fettuccine that we sell there. And these folks come together for multiple volunteer opportunities throughout the year. And this is one table, probably of about, I'd say, 10 to 15 tables that are in the area that are full of people peeling crawfish, sharing stories, sharing experiences, and building relationships. And these folks are also the people who were cooking the meals at the Ward 7 Citizen Center in Chauvin during Hurricane Ida. And so I share this with you to explain how culture is a source of social cohesion, why culture is important, why building those relationships and community is important. Because in times of need, these are the folks through those relationships and being able to talk to each other and say, hey, what do we need? What does the community need? And they're out there cooking jambalayas that people are driving up and getting plates of to bring back home to feed their families. So again, this is why culture is important in building those systems that can be resilient. It's not necessarily the people that are resilient, it's the systems that have to be resilient so that the people can benefit from that. Thank you to our funders, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Louisiana Office of Cultural Development through the Division of the Arts, the M.J. Sindler Family Fund for Culture and Media, and the Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities. I'd like to now pass the microphone over to Ms. Maida Owens to talk a little bit about what the BCC has been up to.
Yeah, we haven't talked very much about the workshops that we've been doing, but probably for the last 3 or 4 years, we've been offering workshops to both the cultural networks and more recently focusing on helping planners understand the benefits of why culture. And just to share that just in June, I presented in New York at the Columbia Climate School's Migration and Relocation Conference, and that focused on BCC as a model. And then the University of Leeds invited me to participate in their Cultural Sustainability Conference, and that more focused on the why culture argument.
And then also, if you could talk a little bit about the project spotlight.
Sure. This is a cultural camp that the Apache Choctaw tribe of Ebarb holds annually in June. And it's for their own children, but they've started attracting many children from all of the indigenous communities in Louisiana and some beyond. And Passing It On grants supported Pam Cartinez to teach sewing and quilting, and Rhonda Goche to teach about corn culture, about the importance of corn in their culture.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. And so we'd like to share with you what's up for today. And so today we will have Sarah Fontana present to us. We were supposed to have Dr. Katie Ross with us today. Unfortunately, something came up and she's unable to be with us today. And so Sarah has agreed to step into that role, and we're very appreciative of that. We're also going to have questions and discussion with Sarah after her presentation. We will ask her, how does she move forward with intention? Because that is the theme for this year's gatherings. We'll have a few working group updates. We'll ask if anybody has any announcements that they'd like to share with us. And then we hope that everybody will stick around for the informal discussion that'll last between 1 and 1:30. And so it is with great honor. It really is with great honor. So most of you may know Sarah. If you don't, if you're familiar with the film The Wizard of Oz, when they say, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, that's Sarah. Sarah is the wizard of the Wizard of Oz. And for us, it's more of pay no attention to the woman behind the curtain or the behind the computer screen. She is the one who makes all of this look easy and seamless. And we're so very thankful to have her as a staff member of the Wetlands Discovery Center, and certainly running logistics for us for BCC. And once again, Sarah is here to save the day and fill in when we're unfortunately unable to have Katie with us. So Sarah Fontana is the program coordinator for the South Louisiana Wetlands Discovery Center, and she will be presenting to all of us today, Learning Through Place, the Art of Environmental Science. Thank you so much for agreeing to be with us today, Sarah. Well, agreeing, I don't know. I guess you're kind of there was no coercion in any of this. There was a lot of volunteer, but thank you for stepping up to the plate and helping us out.
Thank you, Jonathan. Can you hear and see me?
Yes.
Okay. So Dr. Katie Rose was going to talk about this idea of aesthetic learning. And so while I was talking with her about her ideas for this presentation, I came across this term aesthetic learning. And I had never heard this before, even being in the environmental education world. So a little bit of background. I am a marine and environmental scientist. That's my degree. Studied under the great Gary LaFleur at Nichols, and then he sent me Jonathan's way to now teach environmental science in K through 12 education. And so I came into this role not really understanding the importance of students learning about coastal Louisiana. And now it's pretty much my life and everything that, the organization that I work for does. And when I heard this term aesthetic learning, and I heard Katie explain it, and I had to Google it because I'd never heard, I realized it's just hands-on learning, right? It's what, our educational programs here at the Discovery Center do. So if you Google aesthetic learning, you'll see that it says that it's students exploring, questioning, and creating as they learn. To me, that's science, right? That's learning science. So it's kind of funny to me that, like, how can you have science learning without it being hands-on and aesthetic? And it's using your senses. So sight, touch, sound. Again, how do you learn about science, especially environmental science, without it being aesthetic, right? And so the first thing that came to my mind when I heard aesthetic learning, or how do you teach kids in an aesthetic way? How do you teach them using their senses? Is taking kids crabbing. So we have a summer camp every summer. It's called Swamp Camp. And for 3 weeks, we take kids on wetlands field trip. So every day is a different field trip to a wetlands location, whether that's something really touristy, like an airboat tour, a swamp tour, whether it's to an industry, like the water plant to learn how they get clean drinking water. One of the field trips that we do every week, it's the only field trip that gets repeated, is that we take the kids crabbing. And I see Mr. Wayne Simoneau's in this meeting, and I want to say that we could not do that without him. It is something that he has been instrumental in. So you can imagine taking 30 kids crabbing in the middle of summer has a lot of challenges. It's hot. You get them on a bus. You have to make sure that they don't touch the chicken and the hooks and they don't get their nets tangled. Poor Mr. Wayne has lost a lot of his crabbing nets because of our kids, but it probably is the most rewarding field trip that we do because it is a complete aesthetic learning situation. So the kids are touching the nets, they're pulling the net in, they're feeling the crab pulling at their bait. Then they get the crab out of the net and they get to touch it. So I can teach about a blue crab in the classroom all day long. I can show you a PowerPoint of the swimming legs, the walking legs, the blue color on the tips, the red color of the carapace, whether it's a male or a female. But this allows them to hold that crab and to see, or some of them are scared to hold it, so we hold it for them, but they get to actually see that crab. They are in the environment that that crab lives. They're out either on the bayou or in the marsh. They are seeing the water. They're seeing how it's eating the chicken. So it's just a completely immersive learning experience. They're hearing the boats are going by in the bayou as we're on the boat dock crabbing. And then you hear kids say, I got a crab. And so you hear the other kid running with the net to go get the crab from that kid. So they are just completely immersed in this learning experience. And then we take those crabs back to camp and we actually boil it for them. Thank you, Mr. Wayne, again. We actually boil those crabs for the kids. And a lot of our kids have never tasted boiled crab before. These are kids who live mainly in Terrebonne Parish. We have some from Lafourche or even, other parishes, but these are kids from Terrebonne Parish who've never tasted blue crab. And we boil it for them. We peel it for them because a lot of them also don't know how to peel it. Maybe their parents have given them a little bit. But I know with my kid, when she's like, I want crab, I'm like, it's too hard to peel for both of us. So you can eat the potatoes and sausage in the boil, right? But we're peeling it for them. And I've had many kids taste blue crab for the first time in front of me, and I've never heard anyone say they didn't like it. Like their face lights up and they're like, wow, that was so good. And that's how I can teach that kid, well, that's why it's important that we save this land and that we continue to have blue crab. And the reason that crab being so good is why it is such an important seafood to people here in South Louisiana. That's why people from other states buy our crabs, So that whole process, that whole day from taking them out, taking them back in, boiling for them, feeding it to them, that is aesthetic learning. Now, the problem is I can't do that with every K through 12 student in Terrebonne Parish, although I'd love to. That's maybe my next thing is I just start planning field trips for teachers. But for right now, I'm here at the Wetlands Discovery Center, and we are doing this aesthetic learning. So next slide. So like Jonathan said, I'm always the lady behind the camera for the BCC. You see me in all the working groups. But the Wetlands Discovery Center has so many more roles. And Jonathan and I were in a meeting on Monday with a planning group for a grant. And we had to explain what the Wetlands Discovery was to someone who didn't know us. And that was not easy. And I feel like we probably confused her. And so that's what I'm going to try not to do today. But basically, what do we do, this organization? You can go to the next slide. So if we had to break it into basically 3 pillars of what the Wetlands Discovery Center is trying to do, it's this right here. Coastal education in a new, fun way, envisioning the future, teaching the next generation, ensuring that they have the tools that they need to live here or to not live here if they choose that. And then environmental heritage. Environmental heritage is a term that I think Jonathan kind of came up with because we needed a nice word for the website. Um, but environmental heritage is what we do. It's also what the BCC does. It is teaching how our culture, our heritage is tied to the environment and it's tied to the changes. If the environment's changing, how is that changing how we live here? And so again, that's my crab picture. That's the whole picture. You can see the other kids really excited that that one kid caught a crab. But these are the three pillars basically of the Discovery Center. And so all of our programs, I could, ramble on for an hour about all of them, but they all fit into these three categories basically. It's always about coastal education. Even if we're talking about the BCC, you're probably going to leave here learning something about the coast. The future, we're always talking about the future, whether it's the future of the land and whether it's saved or not, whether it's the future of our students. I know that not every student's going to be an environmental scientist or even a teacher, but I know that every student's going to vote one day and they are going to be making decisions about their future and the future of this land. And then environmental heritage, teaching kids to appreciate that sense of place because they feel it. They feel the sense of place. You just have to bring it out of them. You have to make the connection for them. So by feeding them a boiled crab, I can make that connection that if this place doesn't exist, you don't get to do this anymore, right? You don't get to eat these boiled crabs. So next slide. So in terms of aesthetic or hands-on learning, and also meeting those three kind of goals of the Discovery Center, we have this we have this program, and it's called Coastal Classroom. And Coastal Classroom is the baby of the Wetlands Discovery Center. We are extremely proud of it. It takes up a lot of our time, but I love doing lessons. I get excited to be able to go into all the different classrooms. And so Coastal Classroom is a series of lessons from third grade all the way. We just started with eighth graders last year. And we can go down to K through 2 if, they see a need. I can teach kindergartners about something, I'm sure. But basically, Coastal Classroom lessons teach kids the environmental science of Louisiana, but also align to what the teachers are trying to teach. So the Louisiana science teachers have to follow the science standards. They do have a curriculum usually that they follow as well, but the most important thing is that they meet certain standards throughout their school year. And so they might have to teach about photosynthesis. Well, why can't we teach photosynthesis in wetland plants? Or they might learn, it might be about different soil types. In fourth grade, they learn about different soil types. Why can't we teach them about alluvial soil and the Mississippi River and how it builds the land? And so there's, in almost every science standard, there's a place for teaching about Louisiana specific science. So one of the other reasons that this is extremely successful is that Samantha Hicks, you can see her in the photo with the terraces, and I on the right, we teach the lesson. So that teacher gets to sit down that whole hour of that day. We have teachers that are like, can I go use the bathroom? Absolutely, I got this. And we're teaching something that they would have had to teach anyway. But the key is that hands-on learning, that aesthetic learning, because even though in this picture you can see Sam is showing them terraces, but after this, Sam's going to give them clay and let them build terraces. And in the picture on the right, all I'm doing is pouring water over sand, but they love it. And I can teach them about coastal erosion all day, and I can tell you it's the water washing away the land. But all I have to do is put an empty pile of sand right there and pour water on top of it, and they get to see coastal erosion. And then I put a little piece of fake green carpet on another pile of sand, and I pour water over it, and they can see that it doesn't wash away when I put plants on top of it. That right there teaches them the importance of our wetland plants. And so this aesthetic learning idea is so important because, especially in this very formal classroom setting, because I can't take every kid crabbing, but I can do this, right? I can bring in a crab. I can bring in these simple supplies and allow them to get their hands dirty, but also to learn. One thing we've also done with Coastal Classroom is a cultural connection, going back to that idea of this sense of place, right? Their attachment to this place. So before every single lesson, either Sam or I will say, who likes to go fishing? What's your favorite type of seafood? What do we like to eat from the wetlands? And they'll go on, and some of them will come up with, like, the crazy things that we think of. Oh, I like to eat snake, or I like to eat rabbit. And it just starts that conversation of like connecting them and the things they like to do and the things they've heard about to the science of the area. Because then I can talk about how the wetlands are an amazing home for those plants and animals they love to eat. And so that cultural connection to start off that lesson is so important because it establishes that sense of this is where you live, right? One thing that Coastal Classroom does, and we didn't plan this, going back to the idea of like aesthetics and art, the art of environmental science, is sometimes the kids are artists during these. That's why hands-on learning is so amazing because it allows the kids to be creative. So in the picture with all the colored pans right there, they were told that that green cup is your house and you live on the coast and erosion is happening and things like that. I want you to build terraces or any type of structure, and I want you to protect your house. All we do is give them clay. We don't tell them. They might have seen a few pictures of terraces before this. We don't tell them anything more than that. They are extremely creative when you give them the materials and you don't give them very specific directions. They come up with the most amazing things. Some things are not always doable, and that's okay. But you can see in the green pan all the way at the end of that picture, a kid raised their house. We did not tell them to do that. They raised their house using clay. You can see there's some levees they built around their house. All the different shapes of the terraces. Now, will those shapes work? Probably not. And that's a good teaching moment as well. But every single pan that we get has different shaped terraces. And so they are so creative when you allow them to be. This other picture under the Coastal Classroom logo with the red pan, one of the lessons is called Weathering the Storm, and we teach about hurricanes, and they get to basically protect their house again. They get this styrofoam cup, and they are just given, we give them all kind of random stuff. They get pipe cleaners and sponges and cotton balls, all kind of stuff. And we just tell them protect their house. And they come up with the craziest things. This is probably the best picture I could get that didn't have a kid's face in it. But I love when they tie down their roof. I'm like, if only we could do that. Or they put cotton balls to absorb the rain on the outside of their house. But I mean, just the creativity and like they're so innocent because they think that that will work. I could just tie down my roof. But it's so enlightening, that they think about that as a solution, right? And so just yeah, it's almost like an outlet for them creatively. And that's something that we never planned. But when you give a kid clay and you let them be free with it, you get really amazing things like this. So next slide. So the Coastal Classroom series is designed more for your elementary and middle school students, but we see this need for environmental science in high school. And there are environmental science electives in high school. You would take this, typically it's your non-college track students. They typically have to take biology and chemistry and things like that. And then one thing is that a teacher for environmental science will often get pulled to teach other things that basically are more important. So I've had teachers that we were working with that basically were pulled to teach physics, pulled to teach chemistry, and then that environmental science class does not happen. There's even online environmental science where it's like an online program they do themselves. It's called, oh, I can't remember what it's called. But at Thibodeau High School, the students completely take environmental science online on their own. There's no teacher for it. Another problem with this is that there's no adopted environmental science curriculum for high schools in the state of Louisiana. And so, although they do still have to meet standards, just like with the Coastal Classroom program, they are pretty much, their science coordinator will sit down at the beginning of the school year with them and make a plan and pull resources from different textbooks or things like that. But they're never given, here's all about everything you need to teach. And so we were very fortunate to be a part of two funding opportunities, both through the University Center for Atmospheric Research in Colorado, to create resilience curriculums for high school environmental science students. So here they are. One is called Hurricane Resilience and one's called Project Resilience. Hurricane Resilience was created through a NOAA environmental literacy grant. Those have been absolutely amazing at creating some really great programs in environmental literacy. And then Project Resilience was through a grant with the National Academy of Sciences. And so Samantha and I, as I came in later, we worked with people from that university to create these curriculums and make them very usable in the classroom, place-based. And so you can see the description of both of those right now, so I won't read those, but I will explain a little bit about both of those if you can go to the next slide. So hurricane resilience, basically the way these curriculums work, they are completely free. They are completely available online. If you're a teacher and you teach high school environmental science, you can go do it right now. If you go to our website, you can see at the bottom of the screen, slwc.org, under programs, you can download the curriculum. Everything is free with this. All that the Discovery Center does at this point is help teachers to implement this. I'll have teachers email me like, hey, I don't really understand how to teach this, or hey, do you have some resources for this? All we do at this point is help. But hurricane resilience is a 20-day curriculum. Typically, it's taught in the fall because it's hurricane season. Hurricane Ida actually hit during teachers in Lafourche and Terrebonne parishes teaching this, so that was a learning experience. But hurricane resilience just teaches the students how we have prepared for hurricanes in the past, how we prepare for hurricanes now, and then what can we do in the future to basically make our community or a more resilient system around this. And probably the thing that I love the most about hurricane resilience specifically is that the students start out very personal. The very first few lessons is talking about storm stories. And that might not seem that important, but when we started this program, our high school students had not experienced a hurricane. They may have been alive for Gustav. I don't think we're alive for Katrina, and they hadn't experienced a hurricane. They're like, I don't know what you do when you evacuate. And so we sent them out to interview people in their community about a storm story. That's Mr. Wayne right there. He was our test subject because the students also don't do interviews. And so we had to kind of help them a little bit. And in the curriculum, it helps you to prepare your students to do interviews. And so we teach the kids how to interview, and then we send them off and we tell them, go collect 2 storm stories from someone in your community or your family member. Obviously, someone you feel safe with, but someone. So we had Mr. Wayne come in and give an example. So Mr. Wayne can put in the chat if he remembers what hurricane he talked about. So that they could see that people's stories can actually give you really great accounts of storms. And so they record these interviews, they fill out this paper that you see here, and they learn maybe it's about Gustav. So Mr. Wayne would have told them, I'm going to tell you about Gustav. And I remember that it rained a lot, but I don't really remember a lot of wind damage. Well, then this curriculum then goes into the science of hurricanes, and it teaches them, well, yeah, if you look at the data, Gustav really did, and I'm not saying this is accurate, it's just an example, but Gustav really did drop a lot of rain. And so that person's story is accurate, you know? So it teaches students about storytelling, which is awesome, but it also allows them to see how important people's stories about these storms are. And so then you can see, like in that second picture, they're actually looking at storm data from Isaac. So they're looking at wind and water and things like that, but they've already heard the personal account. They understand how it affected their community before they ever start learning about hurricanes themselves. And that makes it so much more personal for them. And then again, hands-on learning. You can see in that bottom picture, yes, we were using hair dryers near water. Our teachers get a caution warning there, but they are using the hair dryer to simulate hurricane waves. and the students actually build resilience measures, doing the same thing that the third graders did with the clay in coastal classrooms. So it's really amazing to see that progression. So hurricane resilience happens in the fall, 20-day curriculum. It teaches students about hurricane science in a very, personal, place-based manner. Next slide. And then project resilience is kind of like hurricane resilience on a grand scale of everything that's happening in Louisiana. So hurricanes are included in this curriculum, but they also talk about land loss, and they talk about subsidence, and they talk about sea level rise. They talk about every issue that we're facing, right? Because the goal is to have them understand resilience and plan for resilience in the future. And so this we typically have the teachers teach in the spring. Again, 20 days. It's a curriculum. It aligns to Louisiana science standards. And pretty much the driving question throughout that curriculum is, how is the changing coast affecting the people who live here? And that's the goal of the BCC, right? That's the question we're all asking. That's the driving question that we're presenting to high school students through this curriculum. So you can see in the picture on the top, they're actually out on a levee down in Montague, looking over a restoration site where they planted cypress trees. That's students from Terrebonne Parish. And the amazing thing about this curriculum is that the students actually, at the end, create a project that makes their school more resilient toward an environmental issue. So they walk around their school, they get out of the classroom, they walk around, they talk to the janitors, they talk to the administration. What's some problems we're facing here at school? Is it flooding? Is it clean drinking water? And so the students of Terrebonne Parish actually were able to come up with projects that they could implement in their school to make it more resilient. So this picture kind of in the middle with the wood base, they're going to build a deck in an area that floods so that they can still use that area to congregate. The students at Terrebonne High School built a deck where they wait for the bus over a flooded area because they had poor infrastructure, whatever it was, they're in a low-lying area, to be able to use that space even when it's raining or it's flooding. The trifold board here, we actually had 2 schools that implemented new water fountains, the water bottle filling stations, because they noticed that their drinking water wasn't the greatest when it would come out of their old water fountains. And so that end product of this curriculum is that they have an attachment to their school, and they're actually trying to solve a real life project, a problem with a project. And so again, giving them that sense of place, that sense of attachment to, this is not something that's happening way on the coast away from you. Your school itself has issues related to the changing environment. And this is how we can do things to help that issue. Next slide. So a lot of you also know us, most of you know us as the people who put on the Rougarou Fest. And so the Rougarou Fest is a free, family-friendly festival. Of course, it has a spooky flair because it's right before Halloween, and it's folklore, and it's fun. But the Rougarou Fest was truly started as the fundraiser for the Wetlands Discovery Center. So all the proceeds of the Rougarou Fest go to teach kids everything I just told you about, right? All this hands-on learning. But it's also to teach us about the folklore of the area and to keep that culture, to keep our culture alive. And I mean, I'll let Jonathan talk about that in a second, but I mean, almost every aspect of the Rougarou Fest has a cultural tie. And so I remember hearing about the Rougarou as a little girl, but I never heard a direct story. I went to the Audubon Zoo. I saw the scary Rougarou man in the swamp exhibit. That's all I knew about the Rougarou, right? And so if I went into a middle school classroom 10 years ago, most of them would not know who the Rougarou is, or they had maybe heard that term. But through the Rougarou Fest and through our educational programs, we had a group from Montague Middle, from the Beta Club, actually present on the festival at a national conference. Now, 2 of these students, especially in that picture in the bottom, they're actually summer camp kids. So they learned, whether they learned about the Rougarou Fest through summer camp, or they just learned about us, maybe they made the connection that the Wetlands Discovery Center is also the Rougarou Fest. They presented on our folklore figure at a national conference when 10 years ago most kids couldn't say what the Rougarou was. So that is really amazing. Like when we got the email that they did this, I think all of us were just beaming with pride. So it's just so amazing how that played out. And next slide. So going back to the Audubon Zoo Rougarou, because I feel like that's the image we all have. Um, Historically, the Rougarou was meant to be a scary thing. It was meant to kind of scare kids, right? He wasn't a fun Cajun werewolf that we make him out to be today. But I really do think that the Rougarou Fest has basically resurrected the Rougarou into this um character that can empower us. And because if the Rougarou doesn't have a home, if the wetlands don't exist, the Rougarou doesn't have a home, right? So by resurrecting the Rougarou, we're using him as like an education tool now. And so this is our poster for this year, our official festival poster. It's done by Brooks Frederick, who was a BCC presenter not too long ago. And the Rougarou is a female, and she's a superhero. She's got superhero cuffs on her arm, and she's like, yeah. And so, like, to see that narrative shift from scary swamp creature to scare kids to like an empowering figure is really amazing. And I feel like that's kind of what we've been trying to do with the Rougarou Fest, to teach the folklore, but to also teach that this is our home and we can save it, and we need to save it because then the Rougarou won't have a place to live. And so I will turn it back over to Jonathan for any final comments about the Rougarou and our empowering female Rougarou right there.
Thank you so much for that, Sarah. I you nailed it. You did a beautiful job and said all the things that I would have said anyway. So at the end, and thank you for that, covering everything that we do so beautifully. Um, and so, I mean, this is a question that we ask all of our presenters, and you've heard the responses from all of the other folks this year. And so I'm interested to know from you, how do you move forward with intention with all the things that you've talked about of the work that you're involved in? Um, how do you move forward with intention?
I would say, I mean, we always talk about we. Like the Discovery Center is a family. Um, Everything we do is kind of a collective effort. So we at the Discovery Center and myself, for an employee, we very intentionally everything everything we do is with intention. It's so funny. But we move forward with intention by fighting to keep these programs in schools and to make new programs and to fill gaps in the education system related to environmental science and teaching about Louisiana. And we move forward with intention by producing the festival every year because it gives us a lot of gray hairs and we can't get out of bed for like a week after. But we know that it's rewarding when we see things like the beta kids presenting on it in another state. And so I think we move forward with intention by just powering on in the work that we do, no matter the challenges or funding or just being tired at the end of the day. That's really how myself and the Discovery Center moves forward with intention.
I think that um, both you and Sam have done such a phenomenal job with the educational programs because they are so intentional and thoughtful. And I am always impressed with you talked about Coastal Classroom and the different components of it with a cultural connection. That's intention. And you have to think about, how will this lesson on soil, how can I connect this back to the culture that the kids are experiencing and growing up with? And that in turn creates that sense of place and that connection to where they grow up. And then also in those lessons, the hope for the coast. So So just as we used to do Hope for the Coast with BCC, we actually stole that from our coastal classroom lessons because the Hope for the Coast is actually the hook in the beginning of the lesson. Or sorry, maybe I'll end with that and start with the cultural connection. But it's going through this thing, teaching the kids about something that is such a challenge but then ending on a positive, hopeful note so that they don't feel so disparaged at the end of that lesson that they feel like there is a call to action in it, not just okay, well, get game over, you know. So I love everything that you guys do with that. So thank you again for that response. And so here's a little bit of information about our working groups. If you would like to participate in any of these, we have the French Language Preservation Group, the Culture and Coastal Planning Group, Artists and Tradition Bearers, protecting collections, and preparing and receiving communities. And the information is there with who the conveners are and when they meet next. If you need any of that information on how to contact them, please just send us an email or a Facebook message. We're very excited. Next month on Friday, August 22nd at noon, we are going to have Amy Kennedy join us. She is a New Orleans-based writer and educator examining environmental issues in Louisiana. And the talk that she's going to give is titled Normalizing Ecological Grief and Anxiety. She actually presented at State of the Coast, if any of you were fortunate enough to listen to her speak there. Very powerful, and so we hope that you'll join us again next the Friday, August 22nd at noon. At this time, if anyone has any announcements that they would like to share with the group, anything that's coming up, going on. I don't know, Gary. Yep, Gary, you have something?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks. We do have some stuff coming up this Saturday. I put it in the chat, but I know sometimes that's hard to see. And so this Saturday coming up, that's July 26th, that's just tomorrow. We have an art reception at the Chauvin Sculpture Garden with Terrebonne Fine Arts Guild. So that means it's not just one artist, it's several artists from all around Terrebonne Parish. They are showing their work at our gallery, but it also gives you a chance to see some of the work we've been doing at the Chauvin Sculpture Garden itself. So that's a good excuse. That's from 2 to 4 tomorrow. So that's kind of early in the day. And then on the same day, after I give hugs and kisses and clean up the Chauvin Sculpture Garden reception, there's something going on in Thibodaux that's at Gina's, and that is Cedric Watson. Now,
Nice.
this is with the Cajun Music Preservation Society helping to host. We're bringing Cedric from Lafayette, and when Cedric shows up, he often brings in a crowd, and so we're just giving you the heads up. It's good to make a reservation or something like that at Gina's, and Gina's is always a family-friendly setting. It's a restaurant. There's no admission, so it's free to get in, but then you have to pay for your own food and drink. So that's tomorrow night. It would be great to see you from 6 to 9 p.m. Saturday night. Thanks for letting me say that.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that. Anyone else? Any announcements? Yes.
Hi, I'm Charles Richard, and the convener for the Artists and Tradition Bearers Group. And we went on a little bit of a hiatus for a time in order to think about how we can revitalize our group, which for some time has kind of been faltering. Last fall, I gave a presentation that Mark DeWitt asked me to talk about, and realized how small attendance at our monthly meetings online have been. Mark has stepped down from the leadership role, and if I'm not mistaken, so has Lola. And what I've done during this little hiatus is work with a long-standing creative partner of mine, Connie Castile. We are both filmmakers and educators at UL Lafayette. And one of the things that we've been thinking about for the topic of going forward with our group is we've asked ourselves, what is it that artists and tradition bearers want, and what would motivate them for greater participation? And the answer that we settled on, at least, is that most artists and tradition bearers want to share their work, and they would like, if possible, to be able to sustain themselves, earn a little income from their work. And so one of the things that we've been thinking about doing, it would be something that we would start in the fall. I used to direct the film program at UL, and when I moved into another area of teaching, Connie kind of took over that. And so what we're thinking about doing, frankly, is taking a survey from our members in the working group to see who would be interested, and doing short video profiles of those artists, their work, and the tradition bearers as well. So for example, maybe 3 to 4 minute little videos, and then each month we would invite that particular artist or tradition bearer. We'd start with the video, and then open the floor for them to say a few words about their work, and to invite questions from the audience. The other component that we are hoping is, and this is something I'm still looking into, I think from what Connie tells me, the state has a mechanism for this already, but we would like to have some kind of online commerce platform in which, say, photographers who would like to sell some of their photos of the coast, or others who are handcrafters, or whatever their product is, they could go to this website and make a online purchase with, you know, things like shipping and all of the details handled directly by the artist, but offering a kind of clearinghouse for all the members of the Artists and Tradition Bearers Working Group. We're hoping that that'll not only revitalize our existing member roles, but also maybe attract more. And those short videos would be produced as part of the assignments for the students in the cinema program at UL Lafayette.
Charles, you made my day, bud. I'm
How's
so
that?
excited about, I mean, all of that sounds so exciting and so promising. And thank you for taking the initiative to breathe a little bit of new life into the group, because it seems like there's a goal and direction and a creative product that is gonna that can be used and for promotion. I think that, and Maida's probably the person more to talk about this kind of stuff than me. And we can stick around and talk about this in the informal part of it as we wrap up the formal part. But there's also the website that they may have mentioned was Culturalist. Um,
Ah, okay.
this doesn't do what you are what you're wanting. Culturalist isn't a place where people can sell their products. It's more of just an area that if I'm looking for someone that makes corn husk dolls, I can go and Google that, like search that, and they might pull up a few folks that do that I can access. So, but there may be some room for something like that. Maida,
Yeah,
did you
and
say
quite
something?
honestly, Charles, I think Maria Zarang is going to want to talk to you. She's very interested in supporting artists, tradition bearers, and artists.
Great.
So yeah, there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I think that if we had one online location where the art and crafts and other handiwork and traditions are all available to view or listen to or purchase by the general public, we might be able to give a broad spectrum impression to the public of just the amount of creativity that is inspired by Louisiana wetlands. So, yeah, I'd love to talk to Maria or anyone who might be able to assist us in setting up the website for that. And of course, the artists themselves would be able to use those short video profiles that we're talking about as a kind of calling card to introduce themselves in whatever situations they might need it.
I think it's great. Gary, did you have something you wanted to add? And if not, it's
Well,
okay. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I thought you might wanted to say something.
I've always thought that what Mr. Richard and his colleagues did at UL was kind of save Cajun culture before we lost it. And we're following in your footsteps here on the southeast side. And so we look to you as experts in how you did that. But then what we can contribute, I think, is we kind of have created that not with the language and the music of Cajun people, but with the connection of wetlands people to the coast
Yes.
and the wetlands here. Like we have gotten a head start on that. And I know you folks have done that with the Atchafalaya Basin pretty well too, but that's kind of our expertise. So as you were talking, it made me think, well, this is like an exchange. Like if you can bring your expertise on the way that y'all saved Cajun music in a way, maybe we can also contribute something about still
I would
having traditional ecological knowledge of the coast. We still have that here in French speaking folks,
Yeah.
and
I would
yeah.
so welcome that collaboration. And I can't speak for the Center for Louisiana Studies, which I think is the um, institution that's most responsible for the things that you're talking about. I do believe that they would be very interested in facilitating that kind of collaboration. I know for myself, I'm primarily a writer and filmmaker, and I would love to discuss with you all some of the work that you're doing because our focus is on people and their ways of life. I'm speaking for Connie as well in that.
Yeah. Thank y'all so much for that. And please stick around because I do hope that we continue that conversation. One last announcement. Today at the Waterlife Museum from 6 to 8 o'clock, we have an art reception for Brooks Frederick and the students of our Wetlands art workshop that has gone on for the past 2 weeks here. And so that's from 6 to 8 o'clock. If anybody's in the Homa area, please stop by the Waterlife Museum this afternoon and check out some wonderful creations that the folks here have made. Um, so one of our in an effort to stay connected and to be a resource with everybody in the group, we'd like to encourage you all to visit the Bayou Cultural Collaborative group page. This is also a page where we make announcements. For example, you see the one on the screen. That was the most recent one done at the Waterlife Museum of what we were talking about earlier. It's the commemoration for Le Grand Arrangement. That's going to be, we will be laying a wreath at the deportation cross on Monday, and it will be the students from the French Immersion School in Pointe-aux-Trembles that will be laying that wreath. And so please check out the Facebook page because there are a lot of other events that are relevant to the work that we do here. So. Next, yes, I hope that you will all stick around. We're at a little just past 1 o'clock. Thank you all so very much for being with us today. Thank you, Sarah, for filling in, and it was a wonderful presentation. And we hope that you all will stick around till 1:30.